Chapter 7, The Cross and the Koran. In 1992, I gave my life to Jesus Christ at Shepherd Air Force Base, Texas. My Christian experience has been a long journey, with the first year being released from the bondage of alcohol and cigarettes. The book of Job was the first book I read in the Bible, then the gospel books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Then I started at Genesis, and it took 8 years to read the whole thing. Growing up on Westfield Road, me and my brother Mike were typical 1980s teenagers. The good stuff was video games, outdoor fun, and social lives with friends. The bad stuff was very typical of most people we knew: drugs, alcohol, sex, etc. Our mom did make the three of us attend Salvation Army Church, though. After the 7th grade is when I can really see the line of demarcation. It really started when my dad stopped attending church. This is when my mom picked up the mantle and dragged me, Mike, and Angel downtown to enlist in the Salvation Army thing. I did have the influence of the Boy Scouts for a few years, and particularly a scout leader named Richard Martin, in my adolescent transition. Rich took time to carve me a walking stick for hiking, and it meant so much to me. The first thing you really experience are 10 miles of hikes in the woods. Your walking stick not only helped you along, but became symbolic of your progress as a scout. One of the last things I experienced in a positive way from my father during this time was a canoe trip from Fredericktown, Ohio, down the Little Beaver Creek to the Ohio River. I remember my dad being sober and genuinely happy on this trip. Shortly thereafter, I would begin to slip, starting with the summer after the 8th grade. That summer vacation before my freshman year of high school in 1982, I would be influenced and take the opportunity to spiral downward. For my generation, it was viewed as a rite of passage to start doing things that only adults did. This would occur after junior high, and in my case, immediately after. It was agreed that I would spend the summer of '82 in Galesburg at my Grandma Peg's farm. My Uncle Roy, that I mentioned being only a year older, would introduce me to my first chemical vice of cigarettes. We would get on our bicycles and ride several miles to the truck stop and get them from the vending machine for 80 cents a pack. No cashier involved. That summer, I got my Social Security card, got a job working in cornfields, and learned how to drive. Unfortunately, I also indulged porn magazines, shoplifting, and the already mentioned cigarettes. We would also add drinking to the list when I got home, and spent my weekend with my Uncle Randy doing just that. Ironically, it would be at that drive-in movie theater that I indulged for the first time. In less than 6 months into my freshman year of high school, I would also smoke pot for the first time with my Uncle Steve. During this time, a girl named Lisa Cassidy that was in my homeroom at school would be killed with several others in a drinking and driving accident. There would also be a girl that survived the accident in my science class. Amy Anthony would live with the scars both to her body and her mind the rest of her life. These fires would burn from 1982 until I became a Christian in 1992. It would cost me a marriage, a couple of career opportunities, and wreck relationships with many people over those 10 years. But God would restore all, like He did on Mount Washington in 2013. None of this would be forgotten in Africa, of course. I wanted to be a blessing to someone. It did not matter who. The opportunity would present itself, but with an unexpected outcome. We lived in clues, or contained living units they were called. They were refitted shipping containers that you see on cargo ships. They had electric and air conditioning. After you had done your time in the big tent, you earned the right to have your own clue. Clue City was next to the flight line. and I used to chill out at a certain pavilion in Clue City where I would see a Djiboutian woman observe her prayer time. I wasn't creeping on the lady. I just happened to notice one day. She had a folded up piece of cardboard that she used as a prayer rug, and she kept it under a clou. This seemed to be the opportunity. In a country that's 90% Muslim, I got the idea that I would place a tiny wooden cross that my sister Angel had sent me on this woman's prayer rug after she had left. This would serve as an inspiration to something she hadn't considered. I executed the plan a few days later, making sure nobody was watching, and prayed the Lord would bless this action. He did, but in an unexpected way. I had fulfilled my mission before noon. I was still living in the big tent at the time, so there were no locked doors. When I arrived home, I found an unexpected gift in exchange. On my bunk, in a tent that was far from the woman's place of prayer, was a Quran. God's statement to me was clear. Islam's chokehold in the Horn of Africa was serious. It was part of the purpose of the camp to begin with, to prevent the spread of radical Islam from sweeping from East Africa to West Africa.